This is James Schiffer. I'm going to be talking about residential photovoltaic solar cogeneration today. We've got a lot to cover. I'm going to talk about the payback period of a 1 kilowatt residential PV cogeneration system in Portland. Not for the whole U.S., not for other countries, just for Portland, because that was the scope of my assignment. And I'm also going to talk about the environmental impact that we could have, and carbon emissions. That includes carbon emissions saved. And I'll keep that on the level of Portland, just because a lot of the information that I used in finding the numbers that I did is local to Portland. And we're also going to cover a number of residential systems needed to replace a typical power plant today. So we've got some stuff to cover. I'm going to go ahead and get started. I've got my mouse out here, so you might see me waving it around numbers. And I guess I should say also that this is for a college engineering class that I was assigned this assignment. I just liked it so much that I decided to kind of record it and put it up on YouTube, or maybe no good reason at all. Anyways, hopefully some people get some use out of it. This is a diagram of two different types of PV solar cogeneration systems. And what we mean by like PV solar system is just taking sunlight and turning that into electricity. And you can see, like, you have a collector and you have the electricity coming out and it goes out to the mains. And it's wonderful. At least I think that's what this picture is showing. I'm not really sure. Still a noob, after all. But what's really good about this picture is it shows that you can get electricity, and you can also set up a system that will take some of the heat that's wasted and turn that into hot water. So usually photovoltaic solar cells work at about, I don't know, I heard someone saying like an impressive number like 24%, but I've also heard people saying average of 10%, 15 to 20%. All these numbers are being thrown around by many different sources, and generally, like, you know, that's a percentage of the total power that could be harnessed in sunlight. So a lot of it's wasted, and a lot of it just gets wasted as heat as well. So you could take that and you could put it into water, and you could, or put it into liquid or just something, and get something out of it. Now, what they're using here is the most general common one, because these collectors are famous all over the world, and basically what you have is a lot of cold climates wanting to use these. So typically the safest route to go is to have not water in these collectors, but some sort of glycol or antifreeze that will be able to heat water through a heat exchanger. That keeps it from freezing. Some people say you don't need this, like in Portland you wouldn't need it because moving water tends not to freeze, and you could just pump that directly in. And if you look at a lot of like the DIY solar heaters out there, they just pump it directly. Just hot water in, cold water in, hot water out. This is a passive system, meaning we got to pump the cold stuff in, but we don't got to pump the hot stuff out. We just put it higher. Hot things tend to rise, so the hot liquid will come out here and just do its thing. This is one with a reservoir. What's the difference here? Well, it depends on how often you're going to use the hot liquid. I say that because, like in a residential system, you're not going to be using it as much as, like, let's say a winery or a desalination plant or something like that. You're just going to use it to take showers and to wash the dishes and whatnot. So you're only going to be doing one of those things about once a day, or maybe more, depending on how many messy dishes or how, like, hygienically minded you are. So if you aren't going to use it, you can put it into a reservoir and then use it, and I believe this extends the period that it stays hot. Anyways, moving on. Now, I lived in China for 3 years, so I wanted to introduce a little bit about China into this. Basically, if you go to China and you just look around, you'll usually see this kind of an image. I used to live in an apartment building exactly like this one, actually. And most of them are exactly like that, to tell you honest. They always have windows facing north and south, and very little windows on the side, and a bunch of smog in the horizon. And on the rooftops, you have a bunch of these solar hot water heaters. And these are really, really popular in China. There's several countries making extensive use of solar hot water heaters. China's just one of them. In China, it costs less than $200 for you to get a solar hot water system. I think that includes installation. I think they put it into their building standards to have, like, hot water access to the rooftop. And it costs in China the same as electric heat, or electric heater. And keep in mind that the electric heater will continue to use electricity. So in China, it makes no sense to go for the electric heater unless you have no access to a rooftop at all. And there's just not many of those situations. So electric hot water heaters, gas hot water heaters, almost non-existent in China, or at a much lower scale. There was an estimate in 2010 that the thermal equivalent of all the solar panels in China, the thermal energy rather contained in the solar hot water heaters, was equivalent to the power outage of 40 large nuclear power plants. Cheap and efficient is what I want you to get out of this. It's very simple technology, very easy to implement, and it has great rewards. No electricity involved in this, just simply put, hot water. It's so popular that you have people who can't even afford the $200 ones making their own. This is off of a source on the internet, not really very easily verifiable, but I lived in China for 3 years and I would completely believe this situation. Don't know how much credentials that gives this. Anyways, this guy made a homemade solar hot water heater. He used basically what he had around: some plastic and a bunch of beer bottles. Now, if you ever lived in China, if you ever went out to especially the countryside in China, you're gonna know he definitely had access to a bunch of these, because that's sometimes all there is to do in China is just make empty green beer bottles. Now, he says, and this is just a quote on the internet, that this system will generate enough hot water for him, his wife, and his child to take one hot shower each a day. So he gets his showers from this. I don't know how hot that is. I don't know how verifiable that is, but I believe that it's possible. There's just a ton of energy, and this technology is simple. Like, I've seen people on the internet, like, there's, I don't know, some kind of scam at DIY solar hot water heaters or something like that, and basically, like, everyone's saying, oh, you can build your own system for $100, and they'll show, like, some people who basically spray painted a bunch of PVC pipes black and set them up outside and just pump water through them. I don't know how they integrate that into their hot water heaters. I don't think you should buy their diagrams or anything like that too, but the fact is that we're not dealing with very complicated technology here. At least a lot less complicated than electricity from solar energy. This is a much more easily harvestable source. So why isn't this on the rooftop of every home in America? Well, so far, cogeneration systems are the most popular, and you do have a lot of solar hot water heaters for in like richer homes in America. They use them to heat their pools, and on an industrial level, it's kind of a new breakthrough. Cogenera is a company that managed to make it profitable for certain companies that used a lot of hot water, basically, to have this system. And what makes it possible, not only do the companies get a small savings in electricity, but they also get access to a ton of hot water. And it's really attractive for companies that use a lot of hot water. And this is also where you run into a problem, because these systems can generate a lot more hot water than they can electricity. So if you wanted to just like have enough solar panels to power your home, and you wanted to do it with cogeneration, you're going to have a lot of wasted hot water. You're not going to be able to use all the hot water that it creates, most definitely. So it's something that in America is approached to by companies who use a lot of hot water, and this is a setup that they did for I think it was Sonoma Wine Company or whatever. It was a winery in Sonoma. That's all I know. Pretty cool stuff. Definitely not in America. We're not seeing any cogeneration solutions on a residential level. Is what I'm trying to say here in this. It's mostly been an industrial one and something for people with pools. So what if we started doing it? Well, let's first take a look at the payback period of a PV solar panel system. No hot water, just electricity in Portland. And I got this from many different sources, my information here. I will also upload a walkthrough on what sources I used. But I found this information and I made the verifications of this information readily available to people. So if I made any errors, hopefully some smart people who apparently like watching this kind of stuff on the internet can correct me. So what is the cost before incentives and tax credits in Portland for a PV solar system per kilowatt capacity? So for a 1 kilowatt solar system, it costs about $9,250, and a 2 kilowatt solar system will cost twice that on average. Hopefully this number is going to come down. So how much do we save per 1 kilowatt solar PV system per year in kilowatt. That's what I mean by this. I mean per kilowatt PV solar system. Sorry that got cut off there. I just got confused by my own mistakes. Anyways, it's about $170, and it's not a lot of money. So if you take that and divide it by that, you get like 56 years. 56 years to pay back a 1 kilowatt solar panel system. It's a bit much. And you guys are probably going like, well, what the heck? The lifespan of a solar system is like 25 to 30 years. You can't pay it back fully. And you're right. And then you're going to say, like, wait, there's a drop in efficiency too. Does that calculate for drop in efficiency? No, it doesn't. So, in fact, this is a minimal number right here. If solar systems never had a drop in efficiency and lasted forever, this is how many years it would take to pay back one at their current costs. And you're going to be like, wait a second, I was just like shopping for a PV solar system in Portland, and they said the payback period was 4 years. And I'm going to say that, yeah, that's because it's the government footing the bill on this one. With our current incentives and tax credits, cover about 80% of the total cost. And I got this from Solar Northeast or Northwest, I forget. It's in my sources at the end. All this information is kind of gathered from that place. So if my calculations are correct, basically I don't really know why we are even considering PV solar systems for households on a residential level. It seems really unrealistic to me. And I think that it is important that we get the industry started and we get people making solar systems, but there has to be a way to get this lower so we're just not losing money hand over fist for this idea of renewable energy. The solar systems are not renewable, and they're also not that efficient, so it's not completely renewable, and it's not fiscally viable either. What about with cogeneration? What if we were to harness some of that simpler hot water as well? Well, let's take a look at that. In the best case, the cost of a cogeneration system will be the same as a PV system. Simple technology, a lot cheaper than this. Is this possible that it's the same? I don't think so. I really doubt that in America we could get it down to this. But if they can get them down to $200 in China, I think we could probably, figure something out, at least to wrap the costs into the costs and of a PV system. And keep in mind that the water will also help cool the PV system as well. So we could potentially have some savings by including water in there. Anyways, I'm a college student. I can kind of dream, and my dream is that we can get it down to the same price. If we do that, then the savings per year, electricity and gas, is over $320 for a 1 kilowatt solar panel system. Now, this is where I go, it maxes out at 1 kilowatt per 3 people. I used 3 people per household in my calculations for hot water. And honestly, I think a 1 kilowatt system could easily provide hot water for 4 or 5 people as well. But I wanted to be kind of conservative on this. So I used 3 per household, 3 people per kilowatt solar panel system, solar cogeneration system rather. Sorry. And if that's true, then obviously, like, if you have 3 people using a 2 kilowatt solar PV system, then you're not going to be saving any extra money with hot water. So, yeah. If you go beyond 1 kilowatt solar panel system per 3 people, this savings will get lower. Not lower, I mean, but you know, it's not going to increase linearly. Think of it as like natural log of x or something like that. Anyways, oh, sorry about that. The payback, this divided by that, is almost 29 years. That's almost viable. That means that the system might pay itself back. And if the system pays itself back money-wise, then we truly actually have a renewable resource. Sorry about that. Renewable? I don't know what I was saying there. Renewable resource. What does this relate to in carbon emissions? This relates to, well, the total residential and commercial carbon emissions is equal to about 11% of the total carbon emissions in the United States. That's about 11% of the total is going to be about 2,225 million metric tons of CO2. So for residential, for Portland, it's about 5 million metric tons. How I got these calculations are again in the Excel sheet, and I will provide access to those calculations, just so maybe somebody can fix them if they're wrong. And if every 3 people had a 1 kilowatt PV solar cogeneration system, the approximate carbon emissions saved would be about 300,000 metric tons of CO2, or 5% of the total. God, 5% of the total. That seems really small, right? Well, yeah, it does. But then again, 300,000 metric tons of CO2. A ton is a lot. A metric ton is a lot. How much is that? Well, this is a metric ton of CO2. So think about 300,000 of these guys a year. And that's bad air. Like, pollution's bad in China, but if they added their natural gas burning or electrical burning onto their production of hot water, I mean, like, it's going to make a difference, especially for some place with compact cities like China does, where you can really optimize that situation. I think we could probably have one really, really, really bad day of pollution here in Portland with 300,000 of these bad boys right here. I really do. And this is residential too. So cars are included in this equation. And also other fuels that we use, like in lawnmowers, which actually substantiate quite a bit of the carbon emissions, at least from what I could see from EPA's website. You know, it's a chunk of it, and we just gotta. If anyone here is kind of up to date on carbon emissions and climate change, you're going to know that we're already past a point of no return as far as carbon emissions go, in order to get the parts per million decreased to the ideal level, or the sustainable level, or the survivable level. I still don't know which one it is, which is about 300 parts per million. I mean, it's going to take hundreds, thousands of years if we stop all burning of fossil fuels right now. So we just have to look at every possibility that we have in getting that number down. But that's a little bit beyond the scope of this presentation. This was mostly supposed to be cost analysis, to tell you the honest truth. So replacing a typical power plant. Can we do it? No, not really. If a typical power plant, you mean a coal power plant? Well, a coal power plant produces about 3.5 billion kilowatt hours a year. And this is, I have the sources for that. My calculations for that as well. Number of 1 kilowatt systems needed to replace one coal or power plant system. And this is just solar, PV solar panel systems, just pure electrical output is almost 3 million. It's, yeah, not really going to happen. Not when the payback period for one of them is 56 years. I mean, it's a great way to just go bankrupt. It really is. You're just throwing money away. It's like yacht racing or something. But if we have it cogeneration, and this is 1 kilowatt PV solar cogeneration system per 3 people, need about 600,000. Oh God. If it was 60,000, that would be even better. But no, it's 600,000, and that's a lot better than 3 million. And if you look at my calculations on my Excel sheet, I go more into these numbers, and I go more just into how much more sense solar heating makes than generating electricity with solar power at the moment. And it's just ridiculous that we even have we heat our hot water with systems other than this. I mean, who's like, oh, we should just burn gas and use electricity to make our hot water, and not, oh, let's use the energy in the sunlight that heats everything up. I mean, it seems like a natural conclusion that we should have made a long time ago, but we didn't. Oh well. This is the process for coal power production. Comes out, you get CO2-rich emissions from there, and then you get some water vapor with some bad stuff in it, but that's not really related. Really, it's just the burning of the coal that makes the CO2 emissions. It's a lot of smoke. A lot of people talk about cradle to cradle. Solar panels have high potential of fitting the cradle to cradle criteria, meaning that you get to upgrade the use of the material after its first use. So in order to make a new solar panel, you can use materials from other recycled materials, and then after that solar panel is out, you can use its materials to make other things, and that all of our waste basically can be reused in some other fashion. And up to 99% of PV systems are recyclable, which is almost meets, like, I don't know how much of that is like upcycling, or if it's just going to go to one more use before it goes to its grave. But still, that's better than a lot of things that we produce today. Even just 99% recyclable. And compared to burning coal, way better. Here's my calculations. As I said, my calculations are actually going to be in a separate Excel file, and I go through talking about that at a later date. And this is just some of the places where I got some of my information. Oh, it was Solarized Northeast. I used a ton. I did just way too much research. I'm kind of a noob, so I kind of went overboard and got easily distracted with the research. So I'll make the links to this, and to this in the description. Thanks a lot. Bye.